Okay, we're moving on to graphing compound inequalities today. Notice that that is part of this third to last benchmark for our standard, where it says I can graph the solution of a compound inequality on a number line. That's hidden, but it's on a number line. And you're going to be able to see that compound is like a compound word. It's more than one. So when I say a compound inequality, it means more than one inequality. That's what that means. So, moving on. What your target is, you can graph, write, and you're not going to solve compounds today. You're going to just graph and write compound inequalities today. It's a nice introduction. You're going to see that it's just, if you can graph on a number line, you can graph a compound. There's only differences in and statement. So you're graphing and you're writing today. So a compound inequality is really two inequalities. Notice, two inequalities that are joined together by the word and, or, and or. So compound means more than one. So here's an example of an or inequality. X is greater than 3 or x is smaller than -2. That's two inequalities, not just one. Notice that I have my x is bigger than 3 here, and I have my x is less than -2. How you graph that, -3, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, +3. How you graph that is two separate ways. But they're just on the same graph. So x is bigger than 3 would be an open circle going to the right. And x is less than -2 would be an open circle at -2 going to the left. They're going in separate directions. And what I like to tell my students, I get confused with an and an or. Actually, I'll show you after I show you and. And then it's kind of an easy way to remember. And, what do you notice? What's the difference between the or and the and graph? Dylan? They look like they're going the same, the inequality. This is going the same direction. Yeah? What else do you notice? Ethan?
That there's two inequality symbols.
That's similar, because there's two inequality symbol there. How many x's are there? Where is the x? The x is in the middle here. Now watch how I graph this. Whoopsie, that's an interesting number line. So I have 0 here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, negative. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, positive. Do you see how x is smushed in between? It's smushed in between the -4 and x. So this is how you graph it. Open circle at the numbers, -4 and 5. And then you keep x smushed in between. X is between these two things. So you graph it like that. X is everything between. So notice that an or graph goes in separate directions. And N graph is between those. It's everything in between. Or separate and smushed between. So an N, X is between. And or is separate directions. And think about it when you ask your parents if you can do something. Okay, so if you say, hey, can I go to the game, and can I go to, after the game, can we go out to eat, and after we go out to eat, can I go to Gleason's or something like that? And you're asking your parents all these things. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can go to the game or you can go to Gleason's. But you're not going to do both of them because I'm not paying for it. So you have to make that choice. Are you going to go to the game or are you going to Gleason's? You're not doing both. That's the thing. That's just like parents. If they say or, you are going separate ways. You can't do both. Then if you say, hey, after school, can I go to Taco Bell and to the movies with my friends? And your family's like, hey, yeah, that's totally fine. That means you can do both things together. That means you can go to Taco Bell and you can go to the movies. You can do everything in between. Okay? All right. So I want want you to tell me, what kind of graph is this one? Is that an or an and? That's an or graph, because you're going separate ways. That's an or. What about this one? And how do you know it's an and?
Because they're connected.
Because they're connected. You're smushed in between. You can do both things. You're not going separate directions. You can do both things. What about the last one? And. Okay? So what's the difference? What does or do?
Goes out separate directions.
Go separate directions, right? And smush between. Okay. Next objective, you're going to practice graphing. And that's what your homework is today. You're going to be really graphing these compound inequalities. So, or what you do is graph each one of them separate. Remember, the ors go in separate directions. So maybe you want to show what an or graph looks like. They go separate directions. And is smushed between the numbers. An and is smushed between, or goes separately. You can't do it both. And you can do both of them. Okay, and then an or graph has the word or in it. An n graph always has the x in the middle. X is smushed between the two things. And this is x will go in separate directions. I think you spell separate with an A. Oopsie, I forgot that there. And then an n graph will be in between. Will be smushed in between. Will be between the two numbers. In between. So an n graph always looks like this, where the x is in between two numbers. The or graph will always have two separate x's. All right. Then you gotta just be careful because sometimes one part is colored in and the other isn't. So that's what you just have to be careful about. So this is an or, so I'm just going to graph them both. X is less than -2, so I have an open circle at -2 going to the left. Or x is greater than or equal to 0. A colored in circle at 0, right? Going to the right. Do you feel like you can do that? You can graph these?
Yes.
And you know if you smush them together or if they're separate directions? Okay. X is smushed in between here. That's an and graph. Here's how you graph those. So you put a circle at each of the numbers, -8 and 4. So -8 is right here. Do I color it in?
Yes.
Yes. And then I have another circle at 4. Do I color it in? No, and then it's smushed in between. Okay, and then this is going to be two separate ways because I have the word or in there. So x is less than or equal to 0, colored in, going to the left. Or x is greater than or equal to 9, colored in, going to the right. And what's this next graph? And, because x is smushed in between. That means it's doing both things. So -6 is right there, not colored in. 3, not colored in. X is smushed in between. And what's that next page? Solving or writing? Writing graphs. I don't know about writing graphs. I think that we'll maybe touch base on that tomorrow. We'll write tomorrow and solve when we get back from break. So today all I really want you to do is graph compound inequalities.